Welcome to another painting tutorial. This is being taped at the time of the COVID-19 pandemia. It's May of 2020. And I hope this can provide you with a creative activity that you can do at home and get inspired either by your own or with your children or with roommates or with friends, even remotely. So let's begin. This is a photo that I took in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And this is the painting that I'm going to walk you through how I did it. I used oils on canvas. You can use paper and colored pencils, crayons. You can use canvas or paper with acrylics or oils. Let's begin. So I used a yellow colored canvas. You can use yellow paper or you can use white paper or white canvas. Establish your lines, which are the perspective lines. This is rather easy. You can walk your children through how to do it. Just place the 3 lines that are going to be your anchor, and they are usually with dark colors. I use more greenish darks for everything that's in the sunlight, and for the reflections I use more violet colors. So you can pre-choose the colors of the crayons or the colored pencils that you're using, or pre-mix these colors if you're doing acrylics or oils. The next thing I normally do is to place the darker shapes. So there's the dark shape, very loose, just establish where you want it in your painting. That's the tree, and that's the reflection of the tree. Now, reflections are usually darker, and as I mentioned, I use more violet for everything that's a reflection in the water. The other dark area that I established was the left-hand side of the painting. So very loosely, it's not really a copy of the photo, it's just the idea of where these dark shapes are going. Now, note that a particular shadow on the wall that I had already established where I wanted it looked really nice in my composition, and it was a balance to the 2 ovals on the right that belong to the tree and the reflection of the tree. And I liked it. It's asymmetric. It goes very well in the balance of the composition. But that darker area of the tree leaves hanging on top in the photo were distracting, so I did not paint them to begin with, and you will see how I modify the image to fit the painting. This is a painting after all. So continue painting with me. Are you with me so far? It's basically the big dark shapes after you drew your perspective lines. What you do next is introduce the yellow. Yellow on the sky, bear with me, it will become blue. But we start with yellow. It's an orangey yellow or yellow ochre. And then you can also use that mixed with a little bit of blue or green to establish very loosely, no details, all the greens on the top, basically with the same kind of bright orange. That's where the sun's hitting. So you want to get that idea of the sunlight and the warmth in that area. For the reflection in the water, this is very nice to do. It's on top of the violet. You start getting either, sort of warm greens, and there's a little bit of brownish greens in there and grays. You start layering. Do not blend. Just put, wiggles of paint with different colors of green. And the shape, basically, you had established your oval at the beginning, so don't get too large, too much larger than what it should be, but just start putting shapes of different kinds of greens and grays and darks on top of the violet. Start painting the wall. So in the previous image, remember that my canvas was yellow, but it was not painted. So now I start painting with vertical strokes. If you're using pencils, crayons, acrylics, or oils, verticals or pastels. And that's basically the kind of yellow ochre mixed with white and you can see through a little bit of the darks, and you start shaping the shadows and the different shapes, but very loose, very easy. For the wall in the bottom, I introduced a little bit of a violet. So get a little light violet in there. It does look yellow, but it's a different yellow. It's not as shiny bright as the wall on the top. When painting the water, use vertical strokes in the very far end and less defined waves. You don't want to go and paint each little wave. It's just an impression of water. Most of the water is actually not blue. As you can see, the water has different colors. They are reflecting what's on the top, and you really don't start seeing the blue until you get to some of the areas closer to us in the painting. So start doing this. See how it is. It's not blended. It's actually just the blue. You place different wiggles, vertical, horizontal, and one blue next to another. And the white is not really true white. It's a little bit of white with blue. So start making all of those paints and try to avoid mixing them, even in acrylics or crayons, pencils, or oils. Just put the little pieces of paint. So now we go to the next step, and I want to draw your attention to the top of the tree. How do you get the impression of volume? Remember, the light's coming from the top right, so you keep the brightest yellowish, orangey yellow on the top right, and you put the more violet in the left bottom. You can shape your tree the way you want. Actually, I decided to make it more yellowish rather than the photo, which was a very summery green. You can paint it green. Just keep lighter on the top right and darker on the bottom left. For the area on the left, very loose. Just make it very, very gray, because that's not the focus of attention. So don't get lost in details at this point, and this kind of painting is a loose painting, simplifying the shapes. And when I say also simplify the shapes, you can see how the reflection is becoming a bit more interesting by putting top paint on top of the darker background of the oval. And again, wiggles that are horizontal and vertical, you can do this with any medium. You start building that idea of the reflection in the water. So have fun, stay within the oval, but try different, bluish greens or, lighter greens, darker greens, violets, even browns in there. So try the different kinds of colors that you can layer on top for the reflection of. So once we have this stage with the volume of the tree on top and the reflection of the tree that's starting to come a little bit better by layering those colors, let's go to the next step. This is starting to look more fun, isn't it? So what did I do? I now introduced a bit more detail of the top tree. I did want that to be darker and not as bright green as the original, because I don't want the impression that that's a focus of attention. That's the top left corner of the painting. So just a dark green and very loose. You paint that dark green. It was important to paint it because it explains the shadows that you're seeing. Remember that the light's coming from the top right of the image, and if we had kept the shadow there without any kind of leaves, it didn't make any sense. So you need to introduce that at this point. It's fun to introduce it. So now I want to talk to you about this area. Now, you see that the sky is blue. I did add the blue on top of that yellow. It has a lot of white in it and is not as bright blue as the photo, but I thought it looked better with this kind of blue. So choose a light blue color. And what you do with the tree and with the leaves that I just introduced in the dark green is to basically just paint dots of the sky on the tree, on both areas of trees. It's either lines or dots. This is called sky holes. And this is what gives the impression that your tree has certain areas where the leaves are actually open and you can see through the sky. So you paint the sky on top of the tree. And that's after you have established the darker areas first. So then is when you paint the blue sky. And note that I got rid of the building that's in the original image. I prefer to have this look like an open sky area. Continue working on the reflection of the water. This is what I was telling you. It's really fun. It's really nice. You can see how now the different layers of color on top of the darker areas, you start painting light and then dark and light and dark. You paint with browns, with greens, with purples, and it does start giving the impression that you have layers of water in there. And also pay attention to the reflection of the wall. Again, it's a different color than what you see on the picture, but it's lighter in color because I did not want to draw much attention to darker colors. Paint the little lines that follow the overgrowth of vegetation on the wall. They are reflecting in the water. If you did not paint those, or your children did not paint those, then don't paint the reflections. Just paint them if you have reflections. They don't have to actually match exactly. They just have to give the impression that they're reflecting what's on top. And in the water, you can see here more clear how you also start painting pieces of paint, different colors, next to each other. Don't blend them, next to each other. This is what's going to give the impression of the water. It is important that you continue working on the wall if needed. Especially look at the shadow that I had next to the tree. It was in the previous one very dark greenish, and I made it more purple to look more like a shadow. And also I added a little faint horizontal lines, not everywhere, but you can see, so that it does give the impression that it's like a stone wall. You don't need to paint all the stones, and there's some blotches in there of more yellow ochre on top of the light color. So just give, it's very, very short strokes. They're horizontal, closer to the left of the painting, and more vertical at the end with less definition. So just slight lines of color. Now what happened for the final version is I want to draw your attention to that shape that I had originally put in there, and then I got rid of it. So I walked you through my painting with my mistake, and I'm going to walk you through how I corrected it. So bear with me and correct the mistake. Just delete or get rid of that shadow. I had painted it really dark, and it came from the original photo where there was a lot of vegetation there. Now, what I decided was that the shadow that I had painted originally looked really nice as the shadow of the tree. That's not really the shadow of the tree. There were some more vegetations that were producing that shadow on the wall. But in my painting, I think it worked really nice to have that shadow. So that's why I got rid of the dark area that I had next to the tree. And you can see how now you can see better the tree trunk. And it really brings that tree more to the front by painting, same as the sky holes, now with the color of the wall. You just paint so that you make the shape of that tree trunk, and it does look much better. The other thing is that dark area of leaves that are producing the shadows on the wall was a bit too dark, and I thought they needed to get a little bit of the orangey yellow. Again, when you're gonna put some light, remember where the light's coming from. It's the top right. And the other last thing is, if you didn't make this mistake in your painting, you don't have to worry, but I had, by mistake, made it very sharp. The oval of the tree against the wall in the reflection was extremely notable. You can see the difference. Whereas in the photo, they do blend. I mean, not blend, but they do mix a lot. So that's what I decided to do in the latest stage. I just created horizontal lines mixing the colors from the reflection of the tree and the reflection of the wall. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you try it. Try it with your children. If you like this photo, please use it. Feel free. If this inspires you to use any of the photos that you may have at home and that you can use to try them at home, or if you just want to do the top three, feel free to do it. And I hope that you are safe and you are staying at home, away from any contagious or infection, and that pretty soon everything's going to go back to normal. Thank you for watching. There's more tutorials like this one in my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.